Everyone tells you your 20s are for fun. Go out, enjoy your life. Don't worry about money just yet. And yeah, I do truly believe that you should enjoy your 20s, some of your 20s. But there's a truth that nobody will say out loud to you. Your friends won't say it to you. Just some people around you won't really relay this with you. Your 20s are the decade that decides your entire financial future. Not your 30s, not your 40s, not when you're older. Right now. It depends on wherever you're at, but right now. Because the habits that you build, the debt you take on, the skills you develop, the money you invest in your 20s, it all just creates a ripple effect and shapes the next 50 to 60 years of your life, and even just the rest of your life. But let's really dig deep into why this is, cuz time is the most valuable thing that you will ever lose in your life. Most people don't understand this. And you know what I'm saying? Let me help you understand this a little bit better than you might already. You can make money later in life, right? But you can never get the time back. If you invest $50 a week in your 20s, you'll be wealthier than someone who invests 200 a week starting in their 30s. Not because you invested more, but because you invested earlier. Investing is a time game. Compounding isn't magic, but it's just simple math, really. Every dollar you invest in your 20s is worth way more than a dollar you invest later. Your 20s give you time, and time can multiply and compound everything over a stretch of time. Your habits become your future identity. Your 20s are where your default settings are built throughout your life. Think about it. If you learn to save constantly, invest regularly, budget intentionally, live below your means, avoid a lifestyle creep, you build skills, you keep your expenses low, you stay very disciplined, you delay all that fast gratification that you get from certain things, then your 30s and your 40s become easy. And I know it's kind of weird to think about, like, man, like, what is life going to be like when I'm 30, when I'm 40? And I've heard as time goes on, life starts to move a little bit faster. So you really reach that point much faster than you think. So it's really important to focus now on these things and to get ahead of the pack, because while you're out there living your life when you're in your 30s and your 40s, and some people that you know they're behind because what, they didn't build any skills, they didn't live below their means, they went out every weekend, they didn't delay any of their gratification, they didn't stay disciplined. You just really start to understand that, okay, this is because I started earlier. I really put one foot in front of the other, and I stayed with it. But if you build the opposite habits, overspending, impulse buying, avoiding responsibility, relying on a singular income, you carry all of that into adulthood, and it gets harder and harder and harder to fix every year, because you're not just forming habits, but you're forming your financial personality, you know? And those people who have dull personalities. Do you want to be that kind of person financially? Think about it. There are mistakes that you make now. Sorry. The mistakes you make now are the most expensive throughout your life. Your 20s feel forgiving, right? You mess up and life gives you a second chance, a second chance to go at it again. But financially, ooh, your 20s are brutal. Yes or no? Like, because the biggest mistakes people make happen right now as we're living. Credit card debt, buying a car that's too expensive that you have to pay interest on, getting an apartment that you can barely afford, not budgeting, not saving, ignoring investing, trying to flex on, saying people around you. on the internet, going to parties, you know what I'm saying? And like spending money on drinks like it's endless, living like income doesn't need a plan. These mistakes don't hurt next month, but they hurt next decade. Think about that. Boom. It doesn't hurt you that soon, but that much further down the line, it could really start to feel like you got a sore tummy. You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's kind of weird. But, you know, debt you take on at 22 becomes stress at 32. Money you don't invest at 20 becomes a regret at 40. So, what do I do? This is your most flexible decade. Here's something that people tend to forget. Your 20s are the only decade where you can completely reinvent yourself. Up until you're 18, 19, like you're really still figuring things out. Once you hit that 20 mark, okay, let me flip the switch. You can change your careers, you can build new skills, you can start that business you've been wanting to start up, you can take risks, you can invest more aggressively, you can live very cheaply also. Move cities, experiment with things, fail without ruining your life because it's so early. Your 20s are literally a cheat code. And rich people do know this. They try to tell younger people, man, fail, keep going. Do what you want to do because you're going to get it right eventually. And that's why they build aggressively when they're young. Average people wait until they feel more quote unquote comfortable. But by the time it's comfortable, the opportunity's gone and they feel older and, they have more responsibilities. Maybe they have some kids they got to take care of. They got a wife they got to keep happy, a house they're still paying off and whatnot. They got these responsibilities. So it kind of adds layers and things. So you also might think this too at times. Your social circle will determine your financial ceiling. Your 20s are where you lock in your environment, and your environment locks in your behavior. If your circle spends constantly, they flex often, they never save, they never invest really at all, they don't really care about improving, they kind of just live for the weekend, they're trying to go to the frat lot, trying to go to the bar, like they just avoid accountability when it comes to things too, then you're gonna become like that. You're gonna be the next person in the group that's like that. And it's not because you want to, but it's just because you're the sum of the people you're around. So that's all you're gonna take in. It's all you will be. Your net worth is tied to your network. Boom. Write that down. Your network is tied to your network. Your net worth is tied to your network. Your habits mirror your environment. So you need to be around people who talk about their goals. They care about their growth. They invest. They think long term. They want way more out of their life. They push you. They inspire you. They challenge you to just rise and become the best version. Your future strictly depends on who influences you now. Even if you're not 20, even if you're 19, 18, 17, start thinking about these things. I want you guys to really hone in on your skills. You know, the small disciplines you learn today can become massive rewards later in your life. People think the big moves matter most, but they don't. It's the small things you do every week. It's the little bit of drippage that you're putting into these stocks every week. A few hours of building a side hustle, a new skill you learn. Maybe you learn how to edit a video. You're getting better with making thumbnails. Keep a budget too, and avoid a bad habit that you're stuck on. These tiny decisions, they compound over time. You don't notice it maybe today. You don't really notice it that next month, maybe even. But in 5 years, your life looks completely entirely different. The difference between a wealthy 30-year-old and a broke 30-year-old, it's just strictly not luck. It's the decisions they made in their 20s to get them to where they are. Your 20s decide your 40s. Here is the hard truth. if you mess up your 20s, you spend your 30s fixing mistakes and your 40s trying to catch up. But if you use your 20s wisely, your 30s are very abundant and your 40s feel more free. They are free. Imagine being 40, no debt, healthy savings, a growing investment portfolio, multiple income streams. Boom. 100,000 right here. Boom. 20,000 right there. Boom. Just everything coming in. And complete control of your time, most importantly. That starts right now. When you're 20, when you're 19, when you're 27, when you're 25, it doesn't matter. Not later, not someday, but now. Your 20s are not the decade to waste, but they're the decade to build. Not to impress people, but to prepare for a life you don't need to escape from. Because the truth is very simple. Your 20s are the foundation. Your 30s are the build. And your 40s are simply the reward. What you do right now decides all of that. Listen, your 20s don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be very intentional with the things that you're doing in your time and make sure you're not wasting it. Start small, be very consistent with your stuff. Avoid the traps that you see because they will be there. Build the right habits, invest, keep your lifestyle low, create income streams, learn skills, choose growth over comfort because it's very easy to be comfortable in our life today, I feel like. Because your 20s shape the rest of your life, financially, emotionally, mentally, and personally. The rest of your story begins with what you do right now. So just don't waste the decade. That determines your destiny, man. That's all I gotta say. This is TNL. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, man.